Xbox has just come under fire for a new tweet that happened just after these id Software layoffs, but there's a lot going on in this landscape that's important about the future of Doom that isn't really being talked about. So that's why today I have to do this and let you know with my friend Horde Mode Gaming.
Hey, what's up?
There he is, yes. So I need to update you with what's going on, and then Horde and I are going to get into the really important stuff that needs discussed here. So the tweet in question, Halo and Doom are dropping in the same month. Call that Guns N' Roses, First Person Summer, Haloom, Hell in a Sticky Grenade. So Haloom, the one I voted for, won. I mean, you have 17,000 votes here and 730,000 views. So this, as you know, id Software had some pretty critical layoffs happen over the past not long, couple weeks, and this post has gotten some folks upset that the landscape, right, it's not in good taste is what people are saying. There's their words, not mine, but we're looking at this and there's some things that are missed, and I've been looking at this with Horde Mode Gaming, and when we go beyond just this tweet, beyond the surface level, this landscape, pulling up Hugo Martin's message here in id Softwares, there were some things in the works, weren't there, Horde? Some extra things that we hadn't heard about. It was kind of surprising to me, honestly. With Fury.
Yeah, a lot about that has come out recently.
Yeah, I mean, we look at like these original games and stuff, which we'll get to that here in a second, for sure. But the id Software message that was released said that the studio was impacted, the changes were spread across teams, and the whole thing was that is Doom dead? Is id Software gone? IdTech over? So let's look at a little bit at what Hugo Martin, the game director, says and weigh in on that.
There's been reports that like we've been nerfed into the ground,
and I've seen those reports that people are saying 50%, 75%. But do you think that there may be some light at the end of the tunnel? Because I know I do.
So I'm aware that there has been some, I guess you could call it independent fact-checking from people within the Doom community, people who have dedicated some time and effort into cross-referencing different things and seeing who's actually at id Software, so that way the community can have a bit of a better head count of who's actually there and who's not. Not super invasive stuff, just to sort of reinforce some of the statements made, and it does seem like id Software's statement, as far as we can tell, is pretty accurate, that they are, it's not as bad as some of these claims are making it out to be. It's not, they're not down to their last 3 or 4 people. They're not down to a handful of people. They are, of course, I don't know if crippled is the right word. They have been impacted.
Yeah.
Big time.
And I think that's the reason, too, we have to be careful about how we look at these. Emotions are high from everybody. I mean, everybody is tense. And there are different perspectives that I think are not really being addressed. So we have the player perspective to this. This is you, this is me, it's everyone that plays. It's only natural to be upset that, like, hey, my favorite studio just got hit with some layoffs. What's going to happen to my franchise that I love? Yeah? I think that's fair to say. There is the dev perspective, like, hey, these guys have families to feed, these ladies have folks that rely on them for their lives, if they have children, husbands, wives. Then there is the creator perspective, right? Me and you and all the other creators. Like, we make videos on this, and we are concerned because we have communities that we know are extremely passionate about it, and we don't want them to suffer either. Like, so everybody is impacted in their own way. So naturally, when something like this happens, there's a lot of, I don't want to say we jump to the worst conclusions right out, but there's a lot of high feelings, high emotions and intensities going on, to say the least.
And that's can be said with generally any situation like this. And it's also with how many people just sort of say things and then take it as fact and spread it around. It's sort of hard to get an actual grasp on the situation. And see how bad things are.
Because, like, it first comes out, and in the way of the news cycle, and the way it goes, which it's been at least a few weeks since these layoffs happened. I've not made any videos on it. I've been letting the dust settle. I've been trying to soak it in a little more, because when you are doing news, you want to get it out as early as you can. But the problem in doing that with this is that the numbers, the dust had not settled yet. You have people saying 50%, 75%. What about the Frankfurt office? What about IdTech? Are we going to move to Unreal? This is not the thing to tackle directly out the gate for me. It may be for someone else. I waited a little bit. It just depends on how you want to take it, though. I wanted to get more information, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And looking at Hugo here, I'm going to play a little bit more of his message.
gutted and we have 50 people, and that's not true. We're the size we were when we made Doom 2016, and IdTech is very much alive and well.
So when we look at that, same size as Doom 2016, which grew over time, yes, and it was a long development process coming from the phrase Call of Doomy is what I've seen, that was more of a grounded, realistic but not base. So things happen over the course of a decade of time, right? A lot of things can happen there. And we look at that IdTech, that is the biggest thing. I mean, you have the perspective of better than I do of art and visuals, and to see your favorite engine be replaced with another engine that you may not like as much, which I haven't really. I like IdTech because it's what I played a lot. Where do you go from that, from what you've seen in the community?
I mean, it's a valid worry. People see that IdTech, which is a phenomenal engine, it's an innovative engine. I think there's not a lot of people who would argue with you if you said that it's one of the best on the market at pretty much any time that it's been out since it was created. But while there is a lot of upset, there also needs to be sort of the I don't know what you necessarily call it, but just people need to take a step back and sort of calm down and look at it. As far as we're aware, they're not replacing anything with Unreal Engine 5 or Unreal Engine 6 or whatever's going to come out next. It does seem like they still have their entire IdTech development people, their team at Frankfurt. So there is still people at Frankfurt to work on IdTech. There is still, if I'm not mistaken, Billy Kahn is still working there, which you would know a little bit more about Billy Kahn than I would, I believe. But I mean, there's still people there who know IdTech, who are working on IdTech, and not just at id Software. There's also people across Bethesda and ZeniMax. There's people at Machine Games that we know of. I don't really know what other studios mess around with IdTech, but we have heard that there are more people. I believe Hugo has talked about it as well, that there are more people across different studios and stuff that know IdTech. So they're not down to the one person or zero people that's been reported. They have suffered a monumental loss of institutional knowledge for IdTech, but it's not dead. It's not over. They have been this low before, and they will get new people, and they will learn, and they will train, and they will rebuild.
And I think that's important too, because when the news came out about, and it's the timing too. It's just unfortunate situation all around, because you look at the timing. Here's how the events played out, right? All right, well, layoffs. Okay, that's rough. IdTech, one person left, which was not entirely truthful, because, we had the Frankfurt office that's 12 people, but then we lost 6 of those. Now there's only a handful of people in the world that know IdTech. What are we going to do? We have to get contractors. They don't know it. But the thing is, there, like you said, there are more. And it's not saying these other engines are bad. I've played fantastic games. You know what was not made on IdTech? Defrag, Bloodshot 9001's game that I've messed around with, has great movement, dashing, meat hooking style, very eternal feeling, and it was not made with IdTech, and it is great. I enjoyed it. IdTech is just innovative. You can trace everything back to Quake. You can trace Return to Castle Wolfenstein, one of my favorite FPS of all time. You can trace Half-Life back. Call of Duty comes from IdTech. Everything comes from IdTech, so it's less of losing an engine that I like, which we're not losing, and more of, man, this is a piece of FPS history that everything has its ties to. And people don't realize that. Everything. It's more losing history, and people are afraid that, I don't want to lose this thing that I've been playing IdTech games 33 years now. So this is a part of my childhood, literally. I'm almost 40 now. So that's a huge problem that we ran into as well. The timing of everything coming out, all the fragmented nature of all these different pieces of information coming from all directions on top of hot emotions. It makes for a hard storm to bear when you have real jobs on top of the line too. People feeding families. There's just a lot of pieces, right?
It's a lot of history. It's a lot of moving parts, a lot of history, a lot of institutional knowledge. And that's, of course, a lot was lost. A lot is now gone. A lot of people are off the studio that have been working there for 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, they've lost some good talent, but in a situation like this, I think I've probably said in the past, but it is good to try to focus more on the positives, because that's all you really have in a situation like this is the positives. And
Right.
what we're left with is still a handful of people, some in the id Software sphere, close to id Software, some seemingly away from it, in other parts of Bethesda and ZeniMax, but you're still left with people who know the engine, people who know IdTech. I mean, and that's something. That's not the end. That's not, death. That's not switching to Unreal Engine.
So we also have to look at the future of where they go from here. This does not mean that Doom is gone. Now, there were a few other projects in the works. Fury, which is like a John Wick gun fu that they were talking about. Ironwood, like a robo-western, and even a Perfect Dark potential remake that won't see the light of day. But given that Doom is the biggest IP coming out of the studio, and now there's a lesser team, where do we go from here? Single-player games like this take a lot of resources, a lot of money, a lot of manpower. But where can they go? Remakes, classic, multiplayer. There's different angles, wouldn't you say?
So I don't have any knowledge on how things are going on behind the scenes or what's happening, but with all things considered, Quake is not their most popular thing, at least not anymore. Rage certainly isn't, as much as I love it. And all of those original projects sound very promising and good, but they're not Doom. Nothing is really the moneymaker that Doom is for id Software and Bethesda and Xbox. So if I had to guess, personally, I would say, as much as I feel that a lot of people are ready to move on from Doom, at least for the time being, people are ready for something new, a Quake reboot, or an original project like they had. I do think Doom is next. If they have a smaller team and a smaller budget, they will likely need something to sort of punch above their weight, something that still makes them a lot of money, the money that modern Doom is known for bringing in with that smaller team. I wouldn't be surprised if we got a Doom remake of one of the classics.
Yeah, I mean, classics have stood the test of time by all means. I mean, you still have people playing it today. You have Decino, Vuitton, you have Big Mac Davis, you have the giants of early Doom YouTube. And a lot of people don't realize that Doom YouTube has been a thing forever now. You have Ultimate Mantoid, Zedenda, Lightning Bolt Forever, Big Mac Davis, all these guys, 15 years worth of videos of Doom, still, out there today. And a remake of classic, that could be a whole revolution, like a whole new era of Doom. Not just on YouTube, but in general. And a multiplayer focus is interesting to me because those typically have like a live service element, but look at the interest. Playing games with friends is super cool. Eternals mods were popular, even though they're PC only and more limited on who had access. But there's just something about playing with your friends and enjoying it. And the competition is so much about multiplayer that's pretty cool. And do you think it could go that way too?
Absolutely. Multiplayer along with remakes is just something that's really hot right now, and I think could be accomplished with a smaller team and a smaller budget and still pull in a lot of monies. And that's obviously id Software is known for innovating, so whatever they end up doing is probably going to be something we could never possibly guess. But just with our limited insight and how we feel about things and how things look, the obvious choices are something like a remake or a multiplayer. And I know in the past, if you would have told me they were going to make a Doom remake or a Doom multiplayer only game, I probably would have been like, I would prefer this or that over it. But if that's what they need to sort of revitalize the studio and keep the lights on, keep things going, and keep providing great experiences for the community in this lessened state, then I mean, like, absolutely. I'll be the first person in line to buy the multiplayer only Doom or the Doom 1 remake. I mean, I'm there for it. And I'm sure you are as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing too that we overlook, because like you see people say like, oh, multiplayer, live service, this and that. But let's take a step back here, okay? I'm an old school RuneScape player. I love raiding with the boys. It's just fun. You go, you celebrate the wins, you get aggravated with each other over the losses. Been there. But here's the thing too. Multiplayer has a rich history with Doom, shutting down networks and colleges because it's everywhere, taking all the bandwidth. Doom 95 on more PCs and Windows. Battle mode was not as popular as I think it was being hoped to. 2016's has more of a resurgence as well in the multiplayer, but battle mode had a thing. They had tournaments. Do you remember that Friday Night Fights? I was on it for one. I got my butt completely kicked because some people are really good, but there was a great turnout on the Twitch streams. It was like esports of Doom. I've done, you remember we talked about the Slayer Showcase. It was a community ran event. Myself and Mayo and other folks were involved. A basically single player, take a couple streamers, commentate over what they're doing, and it's fun. Like, there is room for multiplayer still in Doom in 2026 and 7, 8, and beyond. And I would 100% be there for it because I love that stuff. And it's Doom. And I like it too.
One thing to point out as well is that ever since Doom 2016 sort of, I wouldn't say abandoned, but it departed from that classic deathmatch that the original Dooms are known for. There has been a major resurgence in people who want Doom to return to that classic deathmatch format. Or even there's now people who want Doom to return to 2016 style of multiplayer after we had battle mode and then no multiplayer in Dark Ages. So with that level of demand, I do think now more than ever, a standalone, smaller, and likely cheaper, maybe $20, $30 separate multiplayer Doom experience, especially if it had co-op, which I know people are always in my comments and always in my polls talking about how they want to play Doom with their friends. They want to be the Slayer with their friends in an official capacity. I think it would do better now more than it ever would have. So, I mean, and that's a good thing. That's something they need right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, we know that RTX was needed to make the production of the levels a whole lot faster and get the game out and going. I know because that's one of the complaints folks have with Dark Ages is the requirements to run it, even though the newest, you can use a pretty old video card and still run it, but those do cost a hefty amount of money. But if we could maybe dial back the requirements a little bit, make it more of a retro vibe, maybe that could be the marketing aspect of it, people would love it. They would go absolutely for it. I would be right there, day one. 100%, because the community power behind Doom, like, it is different between the classics and the moderns. If you like, you can like both. And I encourage people that don't like one to just give it a try, because there is some light at the end of the tunnel with the future of Doom and where it can go. It is not over. Like, it ain't dead. It runs on anything, okay? It runs on a pregnancy test. It runs on a microwave. Well, classics to a different degree. But the whole discourse, as we kind of look at the big picture, it is not as dead as people had once thought it was. When you have that limited information coming out, when you have the high emotions, things get a little rough. It's not dead, though. No,
not at all.
No, and I think that's a good note looking forward, is that, yes, we may say that things are rough, but going forward, we still got it. We are still here. And you know what, Horde? I'm going to tell them one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've broken down the 5 levels of Doomslaying, from noob to pro, to see where you are and to find the secrets to reach the next level. Which one are you? Check the video on your screen, and I'll see you there.